Hello everybody and welcome to your video on informal commands. These are also called tu commands, and remember that tu is you informal. So when the command is in the tu form, it means you're talking to someone that you know, someone you're on a first name basis with, someone maybe around your age or that you're just informal with. So that the tu just refers to who you're speaking to when you're giving the command, okay? Remember, a command exists in English too. It's just telling someone to do something. So sit down, shut up, or fierce things like those are commands, but polite things can also be commands like come in, sit down, have some of this delicious food. So it can be polite or it can be a little more intense or yelling, but it just involves telling someone to do something. We have affirmative commands, which is telling someone to do something, and the negative commands, which is telling someone not to do something. And I'm going to repeat that a couple times throughout. Remember, too, that you can stop the video. You can go back and listen to things again if you kind of need to review. We're going to talk about how to form the command and also a little bit more on the context in which you would use commands. So, two forms, affirmative and negative. That means there's two kind of sets of conjugations that you need to learn. And in fact, if you're considering regular and irregular as their own things, then you actually kind of have four categories of stuff to learn with two commands, because you have affirmative that are regular, affirmative that are irregular, and then you have negative that are regular and negative that are irregular. So it's kind of a lot to keep track of in terms of forms, but as you get on to other types of commands like nosotros commands and usted, ustedes commands, you will see that they're a little bit more simple in terms of how you form them. So two commands are by far the most complex of all the commands. Okay, to form a regular affirmative to command, what you use is the third person form. That's the LA form of the verb. So if you think down the list of conjugations, hablo, hablas, habla. Habla is the third person form because it's the third one down. And so that's the same thing that you use for two commands. So habla español means speak Spanish. Obviously, it also can mean he speaks Spanish or she speaks Spanish. So you need to have some context. There's a couple clues that you can use to help you know that it's a command and not just the he, she form of the verb. If you see the exclamation points as if someone is shouting it, that is sometimes an indicator that it's a command. Sometimes it's the response or the answer to a question. So if somebody asks you, what should I do right now, then the command, the response can be a command, which is speak Spanish right now. So you're looking around a little bit in your, whatever you're reading or whatever you're listening to. You're kind of looking and listening for clues about the context as to whether is it the he, she form of the verb or is it the command. So habla español, speak Spanish. Cómelo, eat it. You'll notice the lo on that. Don't get confused by that. Remember, lo just means it from direct and indirect object pronouns. This is a direct object pronoun referring to the whatever kind of food that you're trying to get the person to eat. Corre comes from correr, so run, etc. So these are all examples of regular verbs. So they just follow that rule of going to the third person form. You have some irregulars, so make sure you know these. These are the 8 that you need to know. Poner, to put, shortens just to pon. Venir, to come, shortens to ven. Tener, to have, shortens to ten. Salir, to leave or to go out, shortens to sal. Decir, to say or to tell, shortens to di. Ir, to go, shortens to ve. And hacer, to do or to make, shortens to haz. Notice that the C changes to a Z in addition to it shortening down. And ser, to be, shortens to se. So, se bueno, be good, for example. One mnemonic that's kind of helpful to remember these is Vin Diesel has 10 weapons, A. So Vin Diesel, the action star, has 10 weapons, A. So the person telling you that is presumably from Canada. So Vin Diesel has 10 weapons. A is ven for venir, di for decir, sal for salir, haz for hacer, ten for tener, ve for ir, and pon for poner, and then se for ser. Vin Diesel has 10 ponce, or Vin Diesel has 10 weapons, eh? So that can be your little mnemonic to help you remember. You also have to remember, obviously, which form goes to which verb. So have them written down, know what the 8 verbs mean, in addition to which one shortens down. The problematic ones tend to be desir. Sometimes people think comes from dar, to give, but so make sure you know that it's desir. And then ir and venir, ve and ven. Some people see ve and think venir, or see ven and think maybe ir. So make sure you know those and don't get confused. So if it's not, go back. If it's not one of these 8, it's going to be this, just going to the third person form for affirmative. For negative, you have to use the word no in front of the verb. You also have to conjugate the verb as follows. Go to the yo form. So you start with hablo, for example. Drop the o and you just get habl, and then add the opposite ending. So if it's an AR verb, the opposite ending would be es, because it's still 2 forms. So no hables, don't talk. No corras, don't run. So hablar is an AR verb, so it ends in es. Correr is an ER verb, so you're going to end it with as, the opposite ending. So notice, in addition to having the no in front, the other difference with negative commands is that you keep the s on it. When you're over here, even though it's a 2 command, for affirmative, you just say habla, you just say come, you just say corre. You don't need the s on it. When it's negative, you keep the s. So no hables, no corras, no comas, etc. Careful, cuidado. If a verb is irregular in the yo form, it keeps the change in the negative command form. So this doesn't mean that it's irregular as a command, it just means you have to follow the steps. Go to the yo, drop the o, the opposite. So if you have an irregularity in the yo form, so if you have like tener, which goes to tengo, and you drop the o, you still get tang, and you still have the g. So you'd have to go to no tengas, okay? So for hacer, the yo form is hago, so we end up with no lo hagas, because it's an er verb, so it still has that as for the ending. No digas mentiras, for decir, the yo form is digo, drop the o, add the as. No digas mentiras, okay, and that's what you end up with. So if it's irregular in the yo form in the present tense, just the regular form of the verb, still go to the yo, drop the o, and add the opposite. Make sure that you're not losing that g or whatever irregularity it had in the yo form of the present tense, present indicative. There are some that are just irregular in the negative command form. So they're the same as the irregular subjunctive forms. Saber is one, but that doesn't necessarily make sense as a command because saber means to know. So it would be weird to tell someone not to know something, because if they know it already, they just know it. So that one's not listed here, but it is irregular in the subjunctive and the command form. The verb dar, to give, goes to no des, estar, no estés, ir, no vayas, and ser, no seas. Just got to memorize them. So no estés triste, don't be sad. This doesn't look that irregular because you are going to the opposite vowel. What's irregular though, the yo form is estoy, so you can't go estoy, drop the o, and add opposite ending. It's just a weird form in the yo form present tense, so it just has a different way of being formed in the command. So no estés triste, don't be sad. No vayas al parque, don't go to the park. Vayas is just weird, you just have to memorize it, just like the subjunctive form. So sum up, what is a command? A command is where you tell someone to do something or not to do something. In this video, we learned about 2 commands. So that means when you're talking to a friend, a peer, a family member, someone you're on informal terms with. For affirmative, you're telling someone to do something, and you go to the third person form of the verb. So the he, she form of the verb. So you get habla, come, corre, etc. You have these irregulars. You can remember them with Vin Diesel has 10 weapons, A. You have negative commands are formed by going to the yo, dropping the o, add the opposite ending. You keep the s, and you have the word no. And then you have these 4 irregulars to keep track of. So dar, des, or no des in this case of negative command, estar, no estés, ir, no vayas, and ser, no seas. Study these, get your notes filled in, make sure you come to me or email me with any questions. and be ready to take a little quiz on this next class.